Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 5:16 at 7:32. This is the Trails Committee meeting. When I call your name, please let me know that you're here. Satyendra Sharma,
Here.
Will Warren,
Here.
Catherine McKee here, and Tom McCoolier could not join us. He's absent. And we are vacant one other member. Okay, so let's dive into the agenda. I think you would have received my minutes, Sati's minutes, but that I sent out. I can pull them up if it's useful. We can start with the first one, which I think is February 20th. Should I share screens?
I went over it just now.
Okay.
It sounded fine to me. Is there anything you two want to change?
No. Did you have a chance to look at the 3:19 minutes also?
Yes. And
Okay.
they looked fine as well.
Great. So can we get a motion to approve?
I move that we approve both minutes.
And I
That's
second
3:19 and 2:20,
Yes.
2024. Okay. Second,
it. I second it.
thank you, Sati. All right, let's all in favor. Satyendra Sharma,
Yes.
Will Warren,
Yes.
Catherine McKee, yes. Motion passes. Thank you both. Thank you for drafting those. Now we're current on minutes and I'll submit them tonight. Makes me a little nervous when we're not. Okay, so agenda, okay, so next up is Peninsula Trail Phase 1 Mass Trails Grant. So quick update. I met with Carla, the accountant, this morning, and with Melanie, the procurement officer, to discuss our money, the requirements, timelines, next steps. So we have the Mass Trails Grant, which is the town needs to get reimbursement for the expenditures, which was in this fiscal year, it was the fencing and the ADA consulting. So they want reimbursement before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. So I will be submitting on our behalf the reimbursement information, which I believe both of you have sent your timesheets, right? I think, Will, you did send them.
Yeah.
And I think the only ones I'm missing might be Tom's. So that is now on high urgency to get those. I'll work with Tom to get his in. And I'm going to be working with DPW to get their in-kind support. That will be in the form of labor costs for putting in the 2 parking spots and for the materials used for that. Their estimate contribution was $22,000. However, that estimate was provided by Karen Galligan. And, we've gone through, this is the 3rd DPW superintendent that we'll be working with on this project. So we have to get Bill up to speed and have him kind of go through the records and see what was spent for the project. So what I'm saying is it may not come out to exactly 22. And if that's the case, then we, the Trails Committee, will need to find another source of in-kind support to meet our match of 30,000 that we have committed to for the project. Yep, not difficult to do because if you recall, we have CPA fiscal year 25 money that we were going to use to pave those parking spots. So if we fall short in our original estimate, we can apply those funds to pave the parking spots and use that money as matching funds, as I understand it.
Will
we'll
that put us
see our match.
behind the 8 ball for 2025 or?
No, it just means that we're just using those funds for what they were slotted for. We're just using that contribution as a match for the grant.
Okay.
So that's that. So what we need to do and what we've been told is we do not want to incur any more expenses in fiscal year 24, which means we can work with the sign company. We do not want to generate a PO until, actually, let me just think about that because it was, let me just think, hold on, payroll, issue PO before 6:30 to take out and put in. Okay, we can issue a PO before 6:30 for the signage, but no payments will be made. And Carla can work with that and, if we need to, and we do need to get signage done. So she said we could issue a PO for the signage, but we would need to not spend money until fiscal year 25, so July.
What is the event that we're considered to have expended money?
What is
So
the
we-
event?
You know, we issue a PO and then
Yeah,
what,
so the funds are procured, right? When you issue a PO, they're procured. And we're okay doing that for the signage, but we can't issue a check in this fiscal year. We need to wait until July.
and it's the issuance of the check that is the expenditure. Right,
The actual, so the word expenditure would mean in my world that, but I think, yes, so I think the actual expenditure would be the cash, the check being sent, and the procurement of funds would be the PO.
okay, I mean,
Okay.
I don't care how they designate it, as long as we end up. You know, as long as we end up doing the right thing in the right time frame, right?
Yes, exactly. So, we need to, so Sati, you and I need to get together. Do you have any vacation time coming up that I need to be aware of to, work around? So, some of the challenges will be, so evening, or there are a few evenings that you and I can maybe carve out, and do some work. I think I'll bring some ideas to the table. We can then do some collaboration and bring it back to the committee and see what we can come up with. I'll go ahead and reach out to the vendor Fossil Industries and let them know that we're gearing up for what we're looking to do, and we'll have a better idea about that in probably 2 weeks. What we're about to encounter goes like this. We need to move with lightning speed. We need things to happen in the right order, and we need to be on our toes as a committee. If you're committed for the next several months to make magic happen. Are you ready?
Sure, what are we gonna make happen in the next several months?
So we are up against, well, we'll talk about phase 2 really, but we want to go ahead and wrap this Mass Trails grant up, that project. We want to go ahead and get all the signage ready, get an installer, a sign installer to put all of that in, and work with DCR and make sure we're in compliance with where they want things. So we have to work that in parallel to phase 2, which is the bridge and boardwalk and engineering, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay. But
Okay.
what that means is we might need to meet at a more frequent pace for just a little while, to ensure that we're meeting our objectives and that we're taking the right votes and recording and managing in the right way and making decisions as quickly as possible. And we can have shorter meetings. They don't have to be 1 hour, 2 hour long. They can be half-hour meetings if that's easy to manage. I know we're about to go into summertime, that type of thing. And I'll put a lot of plans on hold just to make sure that we can focus and get through this. So I appreciate everyone's support, and we can go ahead and start socializing the vacancy. I think what I need to do next with the vacancy is basically, I'm gonna send Isabella's resignation to the town clerk and ask that be, that they take care of that on the roster. And then we can advertise and let folks know that we're looking for another volunteer. So hopefully
Okay.
that will aid in our approach here. Okay.
Right,
So I expect to get my objective is to get the Bass Trails Grant, the reimbursement package together and submitted by May 31st. That gives us most of June in case DCR has questions or we go back and forth, because this is our first reimbursement. So there may be some questions around that. So I will work to get that done. Okay. And thank you for all of your timesheets on that. And I think you should still continue to track time. Like we're talking now on phase 1. So whatever time we've just spent, that's the time we want to track Sati on the minutes. Because we'll have another reimbursement when we do the signage and install. So hopefully they'll just be 2. But we can do the second reimbursement after fiscal year. So it'll be like, when we finish the signage in July, August, September, we can submit another one. Okay. Okay, any questions on Mass Trails phase 1? And there'll be an opportunity, we'll bring ideas on the signage and stuff and have you obviously involved in the process. I'm just going to work with Satya offline to develop the initial ideas.
okay,
Okay, great. Next up is phase 2. So we have a lot of information on this piece. So part of the reason I met with Carla this morning is because she wanted to understand what bucket the engineering services was gonna come out of, and so that's gonna be the ARPA bucket. And so we cleared that up, and then, I wanted to let you know that the pro bono services, we have a difficult decision that I think we need to make, and we have to let it go. Because they have not been responsive in a way that's gonna help our project move forward. We've been waiting since August of last year and put the project on hold and at risk at this point we can't wait anymore. I've reached out several times and been that very direct with them, not direct in a negative way, just been like, our project is in jeopardy of not being completed and we'll lose funding if we don't move forward. So I think they're just short-staffed and unable to really be responsive because they have other stuff going on. So while Sati, it was a wonderful opportunity, I also have always said, just so that the powers to be, including the select board, including Mark Purple, including Carla and Melanie, you know, we've always been transparent with everyone, and Tim and the Recreation Commission, that while this is a wonderful opportunity, it may not fall through. You know, they indicated that their timing might not work for us, and now we have proven that it hasn't worked. So I'd like the committee to talk about that and make, to have a vote that, to, you know, what I would propose is that we move to forego using the pro bono services based on the limited, based on the inability of them to respond to us and get back to us and coordinate in a timely manner to move the project forward.
I mean, I think it was a wonderful idea, and it was very,
Yeah. Worthwhile.
you know, very worthwhile to check out, but unfortunately, you know, I guess it's not terribly surprising that somebody's offering free services may not necessarily.
Yeah, and I'm
be
not so sure
unencumbered,
I'm
let's
not
put it
so
that way.
sure it's the pro bono as it is the middleman, you know, the community engineering corps. It's just not been able to connect with us and with them. So it's kind of a little bit, it's not so much Terracon, well, they did indicate that Terracon had not provided a time frame to meet, so that we're going back and forth a little bit. But yeah, I think it's about $15,000 in services. It would have been nice if we could have supplemented that with pro bono. We tried our best, but we have to now let it go. It's
Yeah.
very unfortunate.
This won't be a surprise to them though, right?
To whom?
To these people that we're letting go.
Oh, I don't think so. I've not communicated with them because I wanted to talk to you first and make
Okay.
sure we're all on board. I did tell Carla that this morning because I figured we'd be coming to that decision, and I was sitting in front of her, and it'd be easier
Okay.
to go ahead and communicate that. So, if, so I'd move that the committee, you know, forego the pro bono for the reasons stated, which is because it can't meet our timeline. It puts the rest of the project and funding at jeopardy. So does that get a second?
I second.
All in favor, Will Warren,
Aye.
Satyendra Sharma,
Nice.
Catherine McKee. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so not a failure. It was actually a success all the way around. So I really appreciate it, Sati. But you have to make difficult decisions, and that's the
Yep.
one, right? Yeah. All right, so next up is we have finally finished contracting. But the problem with the contracting is that it took 2 months to do, and that's too long. So now we're in jeopardy again. We have to move with lightning speed. We have to hope that there aren't any issues for us to make all of our deliverables happen. So Beals and Thomas is the engineering firm, as you recall. David Lapointe is the contact person. It's been great working with him so far. He's very responsive. So what we need to do next, I've alerted MWRA to let them know that we're kicking off. I've alerted Framingham Conservation Commission and Southborough Conservation Commission to let all the parties know that we're getting started, and we'll be starting the NOI process, okay? The notice of intent. I spoke with Melissa Danza, the Southborough agent, today, and just kind of reminded us what the process is. So Beals will start that. We'll assist in the way that we need to. And we first will probably be going before the Southborough Conservation Commission before Framingham. And but we'll be running those processes in parallel. And we do need the notice of intent before we can get our Appalachian Mountain Club BCT Bay Circuit Trail volunteers involved. So while we had set them up for May 11th, I had to cancel them because our contracting took too long. And then now I set them up for June 8th. I've just emailed them. We have to reschedule again. The NOI will not be ready by June 8th. So if I asked for them, I apologize profusely, but I think they're used to dealing with municipalities and state agencies, and there's time it takes. So I've asked for a July date, later in the July or August, for their assistance. So I am waiting to hear back from them, and I'll let you guys know what those dates are that they propose, if there is one that they can help with. If for some reason they can't help us, because their projects are, they're full, their time is full, then what we can do in lieu of that is, because they were going to, if you remember, we were going to pay them a fee for their leadership to come out and help us assess the trail and build it as ADA compliant as possible. So what we can do is get our ADA consultant to come out and do some guidance with us. And we might be able to hire, it depends on who's available, a trail building firm, like do a consultation with Dick O'Brien, who had initially gave us some consulting. We might be able to hire for a few hours a consultant to provide some guidance, and we do the work. And we look for volunteers, scouts, or other townspeople that are interested, and try to go from there.
And the purpose of meeting with them again will be to,
To actually get the design down, to make sure, we're looking at building the trail as slope friendly as possible. So the
Okay.
ADA consultant can come out and say, okay, you can build it here, and it will be better if you zigzag it there, and you have a slope here, or if the slope's a little high here, maybe you have a rest stop here, that kind of thing is what they're going to be helping us determine.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, the slope that we're looking for is 5% or less, right?
I think so in most cases. Yep.
Yes.
You can exceed the slope in some cases if it's not too long of a distance.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is that, the slope next to Route 30 there and the stone bridge, that, we headed towards our bridge. There's a place that goes down fairly sharply right there.
Are you referring to when you're coming off of the parking lot,
Yeah,
crossing the street in that area?
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So I mean, if you have to go down 5 feet, I think you have to have like 100-foot run. So it's a pretty stringent requirement from the standpoint of, moving earth and
Yep, and we've noted accordingly with all of the agencies and people and committees and boards that we've committed to do this as best as we can, given the constraints of the terrain. So that's true. But if you're thinking about, so coming from the parking lot, it may be challenging because there's that slope, but if you're coming from the actual trail area, there is less of a slope, so you're actually on ground. And then the way we have scoped it out, when I did a site visit with AMC, there's a way to kind of get into the forest that isn't very slope oriented. But if you're coming from the parking lot, Sanofi, or that other area, there is a challenge there. But that's something that we can potentially address in the future. It just depends on, hold on. Sorry. Ooh. It just depends on, what resources we have and the permission that we have to work the plan. But that won't be a part of, we'll do our best this scope, but there's that. So yeah, so what the back to engineering firm, so they need to do an NOI, they need to do a wetlands delineation. And it does appear that the wetlands have been delineated in that area already, because there is blue tape around. Melissa didn't think that would take a very long time because it's a small area. And so, but she did note that Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, is going slow these days. So we may have some hangups in that world. So it looks like we're gonna just have to be persistent and convincing and persuasive, and maybe we'll beg a little and get things done, but we're gonna do what we gotta do. So yeah, so that's the short of it. And I did ask, so when Carla and I were speaking this morning, the thing about the ARPA funds, they want, and this came up during the select board meeting in February, they want the funds procured with a PO by 6/30, June 30th, even though the funds don't need to be spent until the end of 2026, as long as they're procured in this year. The reason they want a PO by 6/30, which moves up the deadline about 6 months, is because the town needs to report to the federal government what that money is going to be spent on. And the select board also needs to know if this money isn't going to be spent, they need time to reallocate it so they can spend it in this year. So
In when you say in this year, you mean calendar
this
or
calendar
fiscal?
year, this
Calendar
calendar year. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for clarifying, because it's
So we will easily make that, right? The June
No.
30th.
not easily, because our, if you remember, and I'm about to get confusing, so hang with me and ask questions to clarify. So we have $144,000 in this ARPA bucket, right? Our engineering services agreement came in at 62,000 plus 14,000 for the optional geotechnical. Remember, we had those two things written in.
Yep.
So let me get a calculator. Okay, so that's 62 and 14. I think those numbers. So that's 76. So that is what we estimate the engineering services will cost, plus the bid build up and the bid process package building out and the answering questions of the bid process and helping to select a vendor. That is what we think it will cost with the geotechnical, 76K. We've been approved for up to 90,000 in case there's a change order. Right? But there's a
We've been approved by whom?
the select board.
Okay,
Yep. So even though they approved ARPA funds, they always have to approve every expenditure, right? So in February or March, they approved the 90,000. This is the
Okay.
kicker. We can't spend 90,000 because there is a law, state regulation or town regulation or what, I think it's a procurement regulation, that you cannot have a change order that's more than 25% of the original contract. Okay.
okay.
So let me see. So that's 15,500. Okay. That means that even though the select board approved up to 90, we can't spend 90. We can only spend 62 plus 15,500.
Oh. Hmm.
And
So,
no one-
so
nobody-
how much is that
77.5.
number?
That's
How-
70-75.
70-75. Now, we can only spend that in what time frame?
Well, we can only spend it on this contract with engineering firm, with Beals.
We cannot, I mean, so that's for the entire life of the contract?
What was that?
That's for the entire life of the contract?
Is for this contract
But I
and
mean.
the life of this contract. Yes,
Right, but-
our change orders cannot exceed 77.5 total. So even though we have 90 approved, that number doesn't matter anymore. There's a law, a procurement requirement, a regulation that says you can't change order more than 25% of your original contract.
So
And-
this
and-
this approved money, the 90,000, is that only under that change order head? If it is not, can we not write a new contract? I
Mhm.
mean, one more contract and use
We
the
would have
rest
to
of
do
the
a new
money?
contract. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Sorry, Will, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
I just want to understand how you calculated that. Originally, we went for 67,000,
62.
62. And then you took 25% and that added that to the 62 to get the 77.
775. Yep.
All right, so we're leaving 13,000 on the table.
Yeah.
All right,
So I will say that when we're contracting, I asked to make sure that we could put the 14 in the contract. I asked 4 or 5 times. Can we please put the option of the 14K in the contract so that we would have it there if we needed it? So that was not put in the contract. The answer was no. And so it's not the way things are done. This, I think we'll leave that as the answer. So that means like we tried, because we knew that the engineering, the geotechnical might not might not happen. So we had that in there as an option.
Okay.
And so when I knew that, I asked, can you just put that in there? So that the answer was no. So we tried, we failed, and that's where we're at. So
okay.
what that means is we have about, take 144.5 minus 77.5, right? That's 67,000. That we need to spend or procure, we need to procure by 6:30 or the select board is gonna wanna reallocate it, right? So this is the idea. And this is what I posed to Carla, which we'd have to pose to Mark, which we'd have to pose to select board, which we can pose to everybody. Remember our other ARPA bucket of 15,000 rather? For the crosswalk, you might not, but we have 15,000 for a crosswalk.
Okay,
Okay, for that area, right? Remember Sunapee said that, hey, if you put a crosswalk in, we'll give you parking because that would benefit our employees. But we
Right.
want something safe for them to cross that highway because it's definitely a racetrack. So we secured that. So when I talked to the engineer, when we did a site visit on the 6th of May, I said, oh, by the way, we have money put aside for crosswalk, and we had talked about it with another firm, and so I brought it up to him about that we would be interested in doing this. I'm not sure what the track would be. And so I have recently brought that up to him again, because what we can do, and what was brought up in the first, when we did a site visit during the bid process, we were talking about the crosswalk, and the engineering firm said, well, it's going to be a little challenging because you have this, the way the road is curved, right? You have a blind spot. So there are regulations that you have to have a crosswalk far enough away from that blind spot so someone coming around can adequately see it and not be surprised and right on top of it. And it might need a more sophisticated one than just some stripes with a flash, right? It might need bigger flash, or it might need sensors, or it might be more sophisticated and cost more than 15,000. So we might be able to work with an engineering firm, take some of that extra money, add it to the 15 and get a crosswalk. And we might be able to do that, get a PO. We'd have to get a PO before 6:30.
I'm a little confused as to why we would have to get a PO before 6:30 if the thing we're trying to do is to prove that we're gonna spend it by the end of the year, calendar year.
So I understand that this 6:30 thing is more about, the town has to provide a report to the federal government on how they're going to be spending the money. I could ask Carla again exactly. So I think it's a desire of the town to have those who have ARPA money have a PO in place to ensure the money will be spent. If it's not in place by 6:30, the town does not have confidence that it will be spent, and that it may risk losing that money. So I think it's a desire of the administration in town to have the money procured by 6:30 in the form of a PO, locked down, and if it isn't, it gets reallocated so that the town doesn't lose it.
Well,
That's
I
a best
just,
description. I could be slightly askew on that, so give me some forgiveness if I'm not perfectly aligned, but that's my understanding.
if the point is that they want confidence, us working with a vendor or a contractor to actually get a crosswalk built, it would not give them confidence, even if it's gonna take a little bit longer than June 30th to get the PO done.
It depends. I think if we could demonstrate that a contract was under negotiation and they felt pretty good about it, that might be sufficient, right?
Okay,
But
I
it would
mean-
just depend, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think trying to do it by 6:30 would be great, but just, the crosswalk we're talking about is basically some painting and putting up a pole with some electricity going to it, right?
Well, I think it may be a little more sophisticated than that is what I'm saying. It may be one of the like sensors or, flashers. It's not just, yeah, I don't exactly know the varying levels, but it
Well-
might be more than we initially gauged because of its location and some of the challenges of the
Right,
dimensions of the road.
I would think that that a firm that does this could give us a PO pretty quickly. I guess the thing that might be the fly in the ointment would be getting approvals from 18 different, boards and entities and commissions and whatever. How many of those do we have to do?
That's a good question. So if we wanted to put a board, oh, wait a minute. If we want to put a crosswalk in, that's going to be Mass DOT.
Right. But I mean,
That
Mass
might just end
DOT,
the deal right there and then, but we do have a contact at Mass DOT, Pete. I'm not gonna get his last name right, so I won't try, but I talked to him last fall and gave him a heads up, and we could reach out to him and see if that's something that would work, but
Is DOT the only ones we would have to?
no,
coordinate
no,
with?
they're just the big ones. So it's DOT. We'd probably have to talk to MWRA because they're just right there. If it's in Southborough, whoever's in charge of, well, because it's not DPW, if Mass DOT is the road owner, there may be building department. I don't know exactly how crosswalks, what they trigger for organizations, but we should start running that to ground and seeing if that's even feasible. But that's the idea as to how to use some of the additional funding, and we may not reach all of it, which is fine. But we would know by 6:30 what we needed to give back.
Right, I mean, I would think that DOT would probably be able to give you an answer.
Yeah.
Mysterious Pete might be able to give you an answer pretty
Mysterious, did you
quickly.
say
So
mysterious?
this
Mysterious
DOT,
Pete.
this DOT, are they also responsible or owner? They have the ownership of the side lanes, small roads, whatever. Are they? Do they own those?
Say it one more time.
What I'm saying that is DOT has the DOT ownership of the. Do they have the ownership of the side roads, smaller roads, or whatever? They have the ownership of that, or it's the town?
The side road, what side road?
Well, that's not a highway. What we are
No,
talking about.
it's not a highway, but they are in charge of Mass. They are in charge of Route 30 in that section.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just on that section, and we've confirmed that on a number of, and they were actually at the original meeting back in 2017 in January when we met with all the entities to see who was and wasn't interested in that project. But
I kind of thought that Route 30 would be the only road involved in a crossing there.
say that one more time.
I thought Route 30 would be the only road involved in a crossing there. Is there something other than Route 30?
No, there's nothing other than Route 30. I think you are right.
Okay.
Yeah, right
And
there.
then do we have to get Conservation Commission, the Water Board?
Yeah, I think
NASA?
conservation would be involved for sure because it is near.
Conservation land.
I mean, they might need to be aware of it. I don't know if our NOI would need to. Actually, that's a good question. If our NOI would need to include the crosswalk, maybe it does. Because
Well, I don't.
if we need curbing, I don't know if curbing affects water tables, just, I don't know.
Everything affects water tables.
I know. Sati, can you note that Sam Stivers is a guest this evening? Hi, Sam.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, that might be one way. So that's gonna be a big rush to see if we can make something happen by the 30th. But that's just where we're at, and we'll see what we can do. Yeah. The other thing is we were gonna, there may be, for the natural surface trail, we may have, and the plantings and some of those things, we may be able to incur some POs to process those supplies in advance with that money as well. So
Okay.
I guess we should be thinking about like what we can purchase ahead of time for those, for that piece in advance. Yeah.
Would Sam be the appropriate person to ask about what establishes confidence or not?
No, I don't think so. I think we would talk to Melanie, Carla, and Mark, and they would be able to answer that question. And, if we have questions coming out of this, we can record them and double check. And
But I mean, the people who would reallocate the funds is the select board, right?
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And established confidence is my word. Hang on. Just turning down some background noise so I can hear you. Okay. So that is part of the project. So we are going to be moving at a pretty good clip, I hope, I'm just looking at my notes to see what else we had there from this morning's discussion. So we're going to be moving at a good clip, making things happen. But we do need the NOI in place before we can do most anything on that property. But once we do, then we should be in good shape for for getting started with the geotechnical and the structural engineering. And then going to bid. So this is related in the sense of people we're working with, but just so we all know on the record that Tim Davis, the recreation director, has resigned. And so he was our department head that we worked with to really do everything, get expenses done. And he was a supporter and an advisor of the project. So the Recreation Commission will also serves as a advisor. And they're in the interviewing process for the recreation director, but they don't have one yet. So
Is there going to be an acting recreation director?
there is a person from there. They've had some shifts in personnel in recreation. And so there is somebody that's a program coordinator serving in that role, but not as the head. I think Jen Hansen, the head of Recreation Commission, is stepping in to do some of the like overseeing some of the processing of the bills and that type of stuff. So that may be where we go if we had questions for now, but it's an interim situation. So it is going to be tricky, but I just, for the record, want to note the following staff changes that this committee has seen since the beginning of our time, Sati and I, since 2017. I'm going to run through a list, and these are some of the staff changes we've seen since we've been here, and how many people we've had to reintroduce to the project. Here we go. 2 DCR commissioners, 3 regional directors of the watershed division of DCR. This is the 3rd recreation director. We've had MWA staff turnover, but not the core guys, so that's good. We're on our 3rd DPW superintendent, and the entire Framingham Conservation Commission has turned over, including the commissioners and their agents and administrators, and multiple Trails Committee members. That's a lot of challenge, people. I'm just saying, like, that is, and each time we have one of these changes, we just, have to kind of start from scratch and introduce the concept and idea. So it's certainly has had its challenges, but we'll get through it. Okay, any questions on phase 2?
What's our sort of our next big thing then to get going?
Yeah, next big thing is really the NOI, getting it, the engineering company scheduling the wetland delineation, getting the paperwork organized and getting it submitted to both Conservation Commission, Southborough and Framingham, and then to Mass DEP. So I've sent the Dave from Beals and Thomas the deadlines for Southborough's Concom to see where we could kind of fit into those meetings. So if in a perfect world, I would like to it'd be great if we could have our NOI in July so that we can get started, because it's going to take a month or more to get, people lined up, and we need to get our bid out, and then we need to hire a contractor, and we need to do that all this year. Well, the good news is, actually, once we get the bid out, we hire our contractor, we don't actually have the limitation of 12/30 anymore, because we're using fiscal year CPA money, which has a couple years on it. So that's the good news, is that we don't have to procure the contractor by 12/30, but we do need to try to spend our ARPA money in that way. But so that answers that question, does it, for you, Will?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the critical path here is the PO or the crosswalk, if we want to try and do that.
Yeah, so I've reached out to Beals to see if they would be the ones to help us. And the thing is, if they don't have the bandwidth, I mean, there's no harm. It would be great if we could consolidate our efforts with one engineering company, but if we needed to go to another one, VHB has done a lot of work with the town. They're the ones that had initially provided the quote for the crosswalk, so we might be able to use both firms to kind of move things forward if one had more bandwidth than the other to be quick.
Do we have to do competitive bids or anything?
No, because this is engineering services, so it's outside of the procurement requirement, and we just need to get 3 quotes. But we. Just trying to think. Yeah. That's a good point. We might have to, so if VHB provided a quote, but we might have to revisit that, because that's old.
Well, I guess the other question is about Tim Davis. Are there any critical relationships that he was managing for us that we need to somehow pick up?
Just him, his relationship with us was critical.
Hmm.
He's gone on to wonderful things and will be well missed, and it was a great opportunity. He went to Brookline Recreation. I guess he was there before, so that's where he landed, so we'll miss him.
Boy, that's,
I just feel bad I didn't get to say goodbye, so I'm gonna send a card, because I think his wife still works with Melissa Danza. So I
yeah,
gotta send a card.
Brookline is quite a bigger enchilada. than
Yeah, it was
Philadelphia.
described to me like a city, so its own little business.
It's
rather.
wall to wall city, yeah.
Yeah. So good. Yep. Yeah, so good point about the crosswalk and because they reminded me we have to go with the lowest bidder. Unless
Well, I
you-
think a crosswalk will be good, right? Because it gives us that leg up on the deal with the folks there in the parking.
Yeah, we need the parking. Otherwise, we don't have parking on that
Right.
side, which
Great,
sad all the way around.
okay.
But it means we have to move fast. Will, do you want to be my point person on that? Like be the second person, backup person on the crosswalk?
Yeah, sure.
So everything, all communications will be copied on so that one can move it forward if the other one's busy.
Now, this is gonna be like, one of those fancy crosswalks with a little voice that tells you to wait and things like that, right?
Well, we're gonna look for recommendations and what's, within our budget, what can we do that's gonna be safe for this speedway? Cause it might be, we put up the crosswalk, but you have to put up a notice that there's a crosswalk ahead of time so people know. And it's gonna be, I don't know how they retrain people to not drive like a maniac during them.
That's
Well, I'm wondering if we could get a much more interesting crosswalk, which would really probably attract a lot of young people. A pair
Oh,
of,
you know what? This
yeah,
might be the
okay.
place for that 3D crosswalk where it looks like you're gonna run into a wall.
Yeah, that would be good, but I was thinking having a blindfold there, and then people can just put that on and then run out across traffic whenever they think it's okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like to cross now. Yeah, okay. So I think the 6:30 deadline kind of surprises me a little, but maybe we'll see what we can work out, because
Do you know when this report to the federal government is going to be done?
well, I think I understand it was that it needed to be as of 6:30, so I don't know if it's due after or if it's just related to the fiscal year, now report back to the government or whatever.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Okay, so we'll figure that out. Next up is the Trottier Civics project. This is more of a recap. So basically, a student reached out from 8th grade civics class. Is that right, Sati?
yes.
Do you want to recap on it?
I can recap. I mean, so some 8th class students from Trotier Middle School, they reached out to us for a project that they were interested um, in trail building, basically. So they found a trail while near the Framingham Road off Route 30.
Where the
So
Sudbury Valley, where the Sudbury Reservoir Trail starts off of East
starts,
Main.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so we had a meeting with them, and they said that they found a new trail that is underdeveloped, and it is not at all developed. It has lot of vegetation and thorny tree bushes and everything. So
Where does
then
this trail go to and from?
it
Well,
goes right
let's
to the-
describe it less like a trail and more like a vision of a trail.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so they thought that it is a trail could be developed, but then it goes to the reservoir water. It meets. Once you go down, you know towards the water from the road.
Okay,
Yeah, there's
Oh.
a gate. If you have visited there, there's a gate. Sudbury Reservoir Trail gate is there, and then from there. So we arranged a Zoom call, Google Google Meet call with them and their teacher, and they did study a lot. I mean, they knew what they are talking about, and then we had two meetings, Kat and I, and then we Kat and I then we went to the trail. I mean, the so-called vision.
We even
So
took back some ticks.
right, yeah, and then we tried to see where they were, what exactly was their, what they were planning. I mean, what part of the trail they were talking about. But and then we had a uh, on site with them also on a Sunday, and they showed that we were a little bit off, but it was not too much off. And then uh, Catherine suggested to them that you should reach out to the
DCR.
DCR, right? And the other stakeholders are MDOPR, but DCR. So they wrote to the DCR, and they got their reply from DCR,
Kelly Frida, the director
Kelly
of
Frida.
Watershed.
So they, I mean, basically they ended up in suggesting a project, a vision, uh, to whatever to the school, as a school parent. I have not seen it. They actually invited us, right? They
It's
asked us
coming
to.
up, yeah. So their
coming.
purpose of, if you don't mind me jumping
Yeah,
in,
sure.
because they're going to present this project at their civics fair in
Then-
early June. They invited the committee if we want to go. And the purpose was to get involved in a project. What they designed, they came up with the idea. What committees, what organizations do they need to connect with if they wanted this to work? And so we shared all of that with them, and then they connected with DCR, shared their vision, and DCR got back to them on the viability of the project. So the whole purpose was for them to share with us, this is a proposed project. If you want to run with it, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. But it was really about them getting used to and understanding how the systems and processes work in town and the municipalities, and how they work with the state agencies to get something like this done. It was just like a learning
learning for
project,
them.
and out of it comes a proposal. So I think at this stage, like they'll present in June, and we explained to them there are a few. It is close to the water, which is in the DCR buffer, which is less than ideal for DCR because their primary purpose is to preserve the land around the water and to make sure the water is protected. And there's a few areas that need bridges that are not crossable, they're not passable without a bridge. So it would be an involved project, and it doesn't quite connect to another trail other than Sudbury. So it'd more be like it would be an appendage, like a kind of an offshoot to a trail. And it might benefit the neighbors to have a little section there, but it's probably not something we'll be able to focus on until we finish the Peninsula Trail, if we were to choose to do so in the future. But it was a great experience, and we invited them back. Like, we really appreciated working with them, and it was fun to kind of understand what their process was. And they really asked a lot of great questions for eighth graders. Like, I don't even know if my brain was that developed in eighth grade.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think that most students that age have no real appreciation for how government actually works.
Yeah. But they learned a lot, and they really did some research and they found the Sudbury Public Access Plan. They found some other material, directed them to the open space. They knew about the master plan. They knew about us going to the town meeting, and we had a very expensive project.
So that was really amazing that they had a lot of information, and
Yeah.
and
yeah.
sure. Go ahead.
No, it was just great to be able to touch space with school age. You know, we've always wanted to kind of get involved with the school, so we have a contact with the teacher. So there may be future opportunities that we'll have to work with
Yeah.
them, such. Yeah, so it was good. Thank you, Sati, for
Okay.
running that, and you led that initiative, so thank you.
Sounds good.
Next up is the recruitment for volunteer vacancy. So we do have vacancy. Like I said, I'll submit the resignation that Isabella sent to me. I'll send it to the clerk's office. Oh, I wanted to ask everybody, so we have some terms coming up for renewal. I think I'm on that list. So Melanie reached out about it. So give me a second, let me find it. She said something. Yeah, fiscal year 25 board and appointments. These are the members of your board whose term is due to expire June 30th. Do you have members that you'd like to see reappointed, members that you would prefer not to be reappointed? We appreciate your input as we work to compile. If you're not the correct person, but it didn't say who. Do you remember last year, were you the two of you, Sati, are you and I on the same? I forget who, we were on a staggered terms. Does anyone
Yeah.
remember last year who got nominated in?
I believe I've been 2 years now.
Yeah, do you mind if I just look at the bylaw and see, let me
No,
see.
Go right ahead.
Put the bylaw. Too many files, policies and forms.
On the old website, there was a place where you could look this up, but I'm not sure there is on the new website.
Wait a minute, that's brilliant. We asked the clerk to put our bylaw on our website, so that is probably gonna be the faster way to find this stuff. Let me.
But you
see.
still have to connect that to names, which wouldn't be in the bylaw.
Oh, that's true.
But the clerk would be the gentleman who could tell you
Wait a
definitively.
minute.
I mean, his job is, or should include the maintenance of those, of the knowledge about those.
I think I was on not the first track. Oh, gosh. I don't know. Yeah, I wish that was a little more. So anyway, a couple of us are up for renewal. We're gonna have to figure it out. I think, Satya, I think it's you and me. I think because we were some of the original members. I almost remember putting us on the second year
Right.
track. But all right, I gotta reach out. So what that means is we just have to say, yes, we want to be reappointed. The clerk's office will reappoint us. And this next step is really important because if we don't get appointed, if we don't go in and get sworn in, and we get off the committee, we're going to mess up quorum and we're not going to be able to meet and get things done. So
Yeah.
whoever,
that is
including
true.
me, whoever's up for renewal needs to fast track their butts in there and
Right.
get sworn in. So
Right,
I will.
that happened to
Yeah.
cable TV committee.
Yeah, it happened to me somehow on something because I had to go in there 3 times or 4. Anyway, too many times. All right. The other thing about ARPA, so we did have a bucket for trail enhancements, if you remember, 12,500 that we purchased the shed and some tools with.
Yes,
Yep. So we need to also procure that money by 6:30, which is going to be in the form of trail enhancements for this town forest, which means we can, we have to work with the stewardship committee who oversees the town forest, but we told them that we had written in some funds to buy some materials for the bridge, for like a little bridge that needs to go over some plywood that's currently there. And we can use it for some interpretive signage throughout the trails and some benches that we had wanted to do. So I think we need to kind of get, and Will, you did some research on benches. Do you remember you did a lot of research on that?
yeah, but the research, I mean, I really want to do it again.
Yeah.
I guess we know in more detail now what we want. We want a bench that does not require driving anything into the ground, right?
Yes, that's right. And I think we could do a combination of 2 types of bridges, a stone bridge, not, did I say bridge? I meant,
Bench.
bench. We could do stone bench on a couple of pieces. And then you've seen those, I'm sure, like, kind of like, how do I describe it? Like made of either like a coated wire, like a coated metal, or a kind of a robust one of those, the plastic composites, right?
Mhm. right,
bench form that has grates in it, you know what I'm referring, like a real bench, like not just a stone bench, but like a real bench.
okay,
Yeah, so we can do a couple varieties of those if you want to like look up. I think I've seen a lot of those and I've taken some pictures of them. And I think whatever materials we want, whatever can last the longest and not leach into the ground. So that would be important that it's environmentally safe. So Will, do you have time
yeah,
in
I'll
your
take a
schedule
look, but,
to do some research on two types? See
yeah,
what-
just, I guess the, a couple requirements here. Is this going to be, hauled by people down the trail to where it's gonna rest?
I
or
think we
is-
can use horses.
No, we don't have horses. I mean, if we, I'll research the horse thing, but, the point is, should it be a bench that comes into multiple pieces?
Yeah, it's a good point because the stone benches might be heavy. I mean, we
Well,
do,
if they come apart into multiple pieces, then, that's not as big a concern, right?
yeah, I don't think it is. And remember, we were going to get one and we still need to, and we need to use that money to buy that, which I can work with the facilities department to make a Home Depot purchase. But we were going to buy one of those Gorilla carts that you can put mulch in and that has wheels, but it's heavy duty. And then so we could go on the trails and do stuff we needed to do. So if, depending on the weight capacity of that, that might be one way. It might take us a while, like we might have to do one part at a time. So where we're putting stone benches, we want to think about accessibility. Where I really want to put a bench is on 9/11 Loop, like some of those areas that overlook the water are just beautiful spots.
Right,
And putting a stone bench in there or I guess it doesn't have to be, but yeah, something like that. But yeah, I think weight is a consideration too, Will. So it is a good point. Something that, doesn't require a ton of assembly, but that,
well, but once it's assembled would be, difficult for anybody to overturn or take
yeah, the big
apart or
ones will
whatever.
be. And I think we could probably find a way to
Well, there may be,
get it in there. There may be some stones that aren't so like, maybe stone covered, but fake on the
Right.
inside. Just,
okay, what kind of budget are we looking at?
okay, that's a good question. So we have several $1,000s. So right now, let me just pull up my number. Right now, we have remaining in that bucket $7,000.
Oh, God.
So we're not going to spend 7,000 on benches because remember, we're going to do some supplies. We can do some supplies for the like a wooden bridge. We can also, remember where we are by the footbridge at Fay School, the athletic field. Right after that bridge, there's some pallets there that are used for when there's a lot of water.
Yeah,
Right, but those are kind of breaking down and getting dangerous. So we can start replacing some of those. And I think there's another spot on the cemetery, near the cemetery. Sati or Will, do you remember when it's something that at that right angle, that U-shaped angle,
Right.
yeah,
there's a little boardwalk on that when it gets muddy and stuff. So those are some types of things that we can spend that on. But we
Okay.
do need to kind of make a quick assessment of where we can, the materials that we can buy. We might need, if we can't buy that in like built form, then we need to buy the supplies and then have someone volunteer to build it for us, like a scout project or a community day or something like that.
now
Okay.
there's no critical time element to this, is there?
Yeah, this is the 6:30 time frame too. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, if let's talk next about our next meeting, but we do want to see what we can do to put forth that. And then as far as budget goes, as the Trails Committee budget, so we're going to need to remember we're taking over the mowing contract from DPW per their request. So it's now under our budget for fiscal year 25. So I need to confirm with them if their current year budget through 6/30 includes mowing of the trails at least one time, because generally J&J would do one mow they would start in June, right? So
Right.
like June 14th or something like that, the date specific isn't, it's the month that's more important. And so I need to check with DPW to see if they're going to do a mow and then we take over the contract, or if they expect us to take over the contract before then, because I think it's the latter, because we don't our current budget doesn't have enough money necessarily, but we do need to spend our current budget. So there are going to be some things like the mow that we can work on, and then we need to start to contract with J&J. Actually, we do need a contract with J&J to figure out what we're going to do for the fiscal year 25 mow. Yeah, so we've got a lot going on.
It's good that you said that 7,000 is not only for benches. Otherwise, Will would have procured a diamond-studded bench
I'm
for us.
instead
Well,
benches, yeah.
I don't think we could afford diamonds, but I would definitely go for the gold leaf, right?
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so we're gonna, let's talk about next meeting.
But when you
Did
say
we
the
discuss-
6:30, these are ARPA funds, we'd have to have a PO by 6:30, right?
Yes, or
Okay.
purchase supplies by, yeah,
Okay,
yep.
Did
So-
did I miss the DCR MOA work plan or?
Oh, no, the work plan. So Tom McCoolier is not here. He's working on the work plan. And so we should take that up at next meeting.
Okay, okay.
Hopefully we'll have that. And speaking of the MOA, it just came up that Marlboro had reached out and said, hey, what are your insurance requirements? What does your certificate of insurance looks like for MOA? And I looked and I was like, oh, we didn't submit a certificate of insurance, and we need to, and it will void our permit, our MOA with DCR. So I've reached out to DCR, confirm we do not have one, and I'll reach out to the town, get a certificate of insurance and send it to DCR to satisfy that requirement. And that was just serendipity that came up to identify that. Generally, we're asked of those things, but it wasn't specifically asked, and the MOA took a long time. So I'll get that all straightened out and we'll be back on.
when would we need the certificate of insurance by?
Well, we needed it by, when we submitted the MOA, basically, when you do contracting, you generally will follow up. It's usually upon request, you submit a COI, with general contracts anyway, right? So it's just part of the contract, and we'll just go ahead and submit it.
Okay, what does the A stand in that memorandum of?
I meant COI, so it's certificate of insurance.
Oh, okay.
MOA, memorandum of agreement.
Oh, okay, all right. With the certificate of insurance, do they have any liability?
Yeah, they have requirements that we already met. We already had to satisfy those ahead of time, so we knew we did.
And then
so-
the requirements we have to meet are with the town or with
Yeah,
Mass Trails?
Yeah, well, no, DCR sets the limits and then the town has to meet those limits, right?
Okay,
We've already confirmed is satisfactory.
okay.
Okay. So let's look at timing. So this week is the 16th, 17th. What does the last week of May look like on the 29th or the 30th? That's a Wednesday, the 29th, or
I-
Thursday, the 30th?
I would prefer the 30th, the Thursday.
The Thursday.
June 29th? No,
May.
May 29th. Oh,
Something is happening. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, okay. May 30th, 7:30.
May 30th. Okay.
I mean, I'm free. On May 30th. I'm actually food trucking.
Oh, is that Wednesday?
That's on Wednesdays, right?
Oh, fun. Is that an event? Like is that the series kickoff?
Yes, that would be the, no, the series kickoff is next week on the 20th. No, what am I thinking?
Oh, very cool.
It's on the, I'm sorry. Yeah, but it's on it's on the 22nd.
Got it.
Yeah, next week. And then the 29th, it goes for 4 weeks.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so I just sent you guys a reminder for the 30th at the 7:30.
Mhm.
Okay.
I will also now send it for a Zoom meeting. Thank you very much for agreeing to be flexible in these coming weeks as we work to do a lot of different things.
Good.
Yeah, so, okay, great. So if we're all set, any other questions or what?
No.
No, I don't think so. I'll be looking at benches.
Yes, thank you very much. Benches, and you are my point person for, crosswalk,
There's-
and then Sati and I are working on signage. All right.
So
We're good.
are we adjourning the meeting?
Yes, someone needs to do all of that, if you don't mind. Someone make a motion to adjourn at 8:37 PM. Someone moving.
I move that we adjourn the
All
meeting.
right. Sati, you want a second?
Yeah, I second.
All in favor, Satyendra Sharma,
Yes.
Will Warren,
With regrets that I'm going to vote for something that guy moved, but yes, I agree.
okay, and Kat McKee. Thank you all. We have a great night and great weekend, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, so long, Sam.
Bye-bye.